Having gleaned from a handful of user reports that Zwift's 9th and, at the time of writing, most recent world, Makuri Islands, was considerably more taxing on its host system's resources than any of the platform's other pixelated domains, I thought this hastily devised comparison might satisfy my own curiosity and assist others who may be experiencing subpar performance when frequenting this graphically enchanting embodiment of Eastern splendour. The setup and methodology for identifying and analysing these reported performance discrepancies was as follows. 2 individual sessions were carried out on the same system. The first around an improvised combination of Watopia's sand and sequoias and TikTok routes, which began and ended with Titan's Grove in alternate directions, and incorporated most of the Flat Loop's ocean tunnel in addition to the Fuego Flats forwards from north to south. The second session consisted of another manually created concoction, this time commencing with the Makuri Islands reverse Kappa Quest course, which extends to 12.4 kilometres and features 2 ascents of the polka dot temple com to the mystical tree, itself host to a swarm of scintillating will-o'-the-wisps, enacting a triumphant turquoise tribute to their thriving verdant abode, before turning onto the Flatland Loop for a casual cruise around the region's lavish countryside, with a flyby tour of the village Ensign's bustling marketplace and hot springs. The game was run at 3840 by 2160 with UHD 2160p Ultra selected in the settings menu and in full screen mode throughout, this being an effective method of verifying the specified resolution is applied, guaranteeing the application priority from both the CPU and GPU, and minimising the disruptive side effects that can arise when the host system arbitrarily allocates these and other crucial resources to invasive background tasks, not least Windows Update. Both sessions ran to roughly an hour, and were recorded for reference and analysis using OBS Open Broadcast software and an Elgato 4K 60 Pro Mark II capture card. Each run included real-time monitoring from RivaTuner statistics server of current, minimum, maximum and average frame rates, a data trace identifying high and low frame times, the longest and shortest periods that individual frames occupy the screen, or the intervals between each rendered image, in addition to a timed benchmark of roughly 9 minutes conducted using MSI's Afterburner software. Much care was taken to make both sessions graphical counterparts, through incorporating scenery with commensurate visual detail, combined with equally abundant and intense on-screen activity. Watopia was a little more densely populated, with just over 2,000 avatars compared to Makuri's 600, but with the former being a far larger virtual landmass, the latter were more thinly distributed, and overall levels of animation were broadly similar. Results will be revealed following a few words from our kind sponsor. Buy a shoe, if not 2! As earnestly guaranteed prior to those 6 words from our generous sponsor, here is the concluding part of my hurriedly researched but hopefully insightful and constructive investigation into the alleged performance degradation experienced by a significant proportion of Zwifters seeking a sufficiently immersive experience of the game's spectacularly stimulating homage to Japanese culture and rurality. And to express my gratitude for your kind patience, I've included a bonus benchmark from a 2-part session conducted on RGT, which, since the permanent closure of Virtue Go in the winter of 2019, is, at the time of talking, arguably Zwift's most materially aligned and credible competing platform for indoor cycling. Aside from providing a systematic visual comparison between these 2 rivals and illustrating key differences in the artistic philosophy behind each, it also offers the chance for us to scrutinise their drastically contrasting physics algorithms, and perhaps most notably, the vast discrepancy in their respective draft zone implementations, in terms of both the amount of energy a rider can conserve within them and the additional effort required to keep pace when out of range. As with Zwift, The complete session lasted approximately 1 hour, but consisted of separate runs around 2 of the program's presently free-to-trial routes, the first being Borrego Springs, and to follow Tempelhof Airport. And if either or neither is free to trial when you attempt to trial it, sorry, but as time progresses, a company's penchant for profit generally proliferates. The former, Borrego Springs, is closely modelled on its real-life cycling mecca, located in San Diego, California, whose namesake village fosters an astronomically preserved dark sky community and forms part of the state's largest park, Anza Borrego. This large, definitively flat, circuit-style course, surrounded by impressively detailed renderings of the Colorado Desert's barren landscapes, distant mountains and golden sands, is perhaps the most convincing animated counterpart we have to Zwift's fantastical Fuego Flats. By stark contrast, Tempelhof Airport, though every pixel as much of a painstaking replica of its non-fictional incarnation, is a short and twisty affair, extending to less than a single kilometre, and, akin to Zwift's Downtown Dolphin, is evidently designed to engender crit racing in its most intensive and visceral form, with success being dependent upon acute and impulsive sprints, together with colossal surges in power. RGT runs exclusively in full screen mode, and when launched, defaults to the system's desktop resolution, which in this case, as with Zwift, was 4K UHD 2160p, with maximum eye candy enabled. The results shall be divulged after our next sponsor. Data. We all love data, but is it good data or is it bad data? Or is it indifferent data? How do you distinguish between good and bad data? Sign up with Apex Evolve. Apex Evolve uses a unique hyperdynamic machine-learned introspective client detection engine to collate, curate, streamline and deploy the data that you need to make the decisions that you want at the times that you desire. Just get out! All statistics currently scrolling across your screen were taken directly from MSI Afterburner's data log file, which is automatically generated when the program's configurable benchmark shortcut key is pressed. From the lush rurality of Yumezi to the luminous urbanity of Neokyo, the ardently anticipated secondary province within Zwift's magical medley of exotic mystical Eastern fantasy, Makuri Islands, and a truly spectacular showcase of never-ending neon-lit nightlife, said to pressure the pipelines of today's most potent GPUs to their pixel-pumping extremes. Adding a further, now defunct candidate into the virtual mix by way of Tax's TTS4 advanced application, whose selection of 6 terrains equate to the worlds of Zwift, the latter numbering 9 at the time of publication. Metropolitan City, though similar in appearance to Zwift's scrupulous replica of Richmond's official UCI course, embodies an authentic grid layout unlike that available within any domain on either of the platform's featured contemporaries. Though without Tax's proprietary black track steering frame, or my manually intercepting via the cursor keys, your avatar automatically follows a predefined route, as indicated by the arrows. And quite how many streets, alleys or avenues were left unexplored at the end of this test is anybody's best guess, though after a while, they do all begin to look rather similar. Well, that sure was worth the wait. Without diving too deeply into the data, it is immediately apparent that in all 3 instances, even at UHD 4K 2060p, the average frame rate is being capped by the monitor's refresh rate, which was set to a fixed 60 Hz with VSync enabled. For reference, activating VSync ensures that the monitor displays images rendered by and received from the graphics card in their entirety prior to blanking and commencing the next scan. Nonetheless, even when omitting the values returned for maximum and average frame rates, we can determine with reasonable confidence by those generated for minimum, 1%, and 0.1% lows, that of the 3 applications, it was RGT that placed the heaviest demand on the host system's resources, with Zwift's Makuri Islands taxing your video card a fraction less, and, as anticipated, Watopia, alongside TTS4, being the modern GPU's proverbial Zone 1. Despite these results confirming what user reports alleged, it is interesting to note that the discrepancies between all 4 Zwift runs are far smaller than those between RGT and Zwift, and indeed, barely measurable from minimum frame rate and above.
Well, except for Richmond, where the minimum is clearly higher.
Yes, well, I recorded that benchmark later and didn't have time to compare it with the rest.
Well, I think you're going to have to run them all again with VSync disabled.
Not now. This video ends and uploads right here.